There seems to be a part your practice does not touch, some deeper part that does not change. You sit in the mornings before the house wakes up. You breathe with intention. You return to the present moment, and something shifts. The edges soften. The constant hum of anxiety quiets just enough to feel livable. You carry yourself differently through the day. There is genuine change, and I would not diminish it. But underneath all of that, if you sit still long enough to feel what is really there, something else remains. Something that did not get the message. Something that is still waiting. The practice reaches many things. It reaches the nervous system, the habitual thoughts, the way the breath moves through a tense chest. It can reach the stories you tell yourself about who you are and what you deserve. It can soften the grip on certain beliefs you had mistaken for facts. That is real work. That is meaningful work. And yet, there seems to be a layer that sits below all of it. Not unreachable necessarily, but resistant in a different way than the mind is resistant. The mind you can reason with, you can redirect, you can return from. But this deeper place does not respond to redirection the same way. It does not believe what the mind has learned. It has its own logic, formed long before you had words for what you were experiencing. What lives there is not a thought exactly. It is more like a posture, a bracing. The body or the self, or whatever you want to call the whole of you, held slightly forward, slightly tense, slightly ready. Ready for something to go wrong, ready to be caught off guard, ready for the moment when safety turns out to have been temporary, which it has been before, which taught you something you did not choose to learn. The practice helps you rest, but this part does not fully rest. It watches even while you meditate. It waits even while you breathe slowly. It maintains a kind of vigil that has become so habitual you barely notice it anymore, which does not mean it is not costing you something. I have observed this in many forms across many kinds of people. The person who has genuinely healed a great deal and still flinches at a certain tone of voice. The person who has done years of honest inner work and still wakes at 3 in the morning with an unnamed sense of dread. The person who can describe their own patterns with remarkable clarity and still finds themselves caught inside those patterns in moments of pressure. Knowledge and transformation are related, but they are not the same thing. There is something almost poignant about this gap. You have done the work. You have shown up to it seriously. You have changed in ways that are visible to people who knew you before. And still, there is this part, still bracing, still unconvinced, still holding a memory in its tissue that the thinking mind has already processed and released, or believes it has. The question worth sitting with is not how to force that part to change. Forcing it tends to drive it further underground. The question is whether you can acknowledge it honestly, whether you can say, without collapsing into it or rushing past it, that something in you has not yet felt safe, that the work you have done has been real, and that this too is real, both things living in the same person at the same time. Because what often happens is that we use the practice to manage the discomfort of that bracing rather than turning toward it directly. The practice becomes a way of not feeling the thing that still needs to be felt, which is not a failure of the practice. It is just worth noticing. When you meditate and find peace, that peace is genuine. When you return to ordinary life and the familiar tension resumes its position, that is also genuine. Neither cancels the other out. Both are telling you something true about where you are. The part that is still bracing is not a problem to solve quickly. It developed for reasons. It learned what it learned in conditions that made that learning necessary. It has been keeping watch for a long time, and it is not going to stop simply because the mind has read something useful or sat quietly for 30 minutes each morning. What it might respond to, slowly, is consistency. Not the consistency of perfect practice, but the consistency of continued life not confirming what it fears. The slow accumulation of moments where the danger it expects does not arrive, where something good happens and is not immediately taken back, where rest is allowed and nothing terrible follows from it. This does not happen on a schedule. It does not happen because you decide it should. It happens at its own pace, which can feel frustratingly slow when you have already done so much. But there is something that can shift in how you relate to that bracing part even before it changes. You can stop treating it as evidence that your practice has failed. You can stop measuring your progress by whether it has gone quiet. You can let it be there, this old watchful part of you, without needing it to disappear before you feel you have arrived somewhere. The practice touches what it touches. That is not a small thing, and there is a part that it has not yet reached, sitting quietly beneath the surface, still waiting for the signal that it is finally safe to put down what it has been carrying. You can work toward that, and you can also, in the meantime, be kind to the part that is still holding on. It learned to hold on for reasons. It has not been wrong to survive.